Hi class, and welcome to our part 2 of 3.1 notes. Now we're going to get a little bit deeper into exponents and create a law of exponents foldables. So before we get started, make sure that you have this sheet that looks like this, and you have this sheet that looks like this. The first thing you should notice about this sheet is that it's double-sided and perforated. So the first thing I need you to do is to only cut along the perimeter so that your paper will look like this. Now, if you notice, this side is going to be the side that's glued down on your sheet. And if you look at this sheet, you'll see paste foldable here. Here's what I need you to do now. Take this and fold it in half so that the tabs will be sticking up, and so that this part will be on the back. Then you may either tape or glue only this part down. So I'm going to take a piece of tape and put it here and here. This will allow me to be able to write on a smooth surface and also fold this over and put it back in my notebook as I need to. So for the remainder of the notes, we are actually going to go step by step, and we are going to learn the laws of exponents. The first that we're going to start with is called the product of powers. Before we start with the actual notes, I need for you to cut along this line as so that we will be able to flap out and write our definition for what the product of powers means and do an example problem right here on the side. Let's get started. The product of powers law states that when we are multiplying with like bases, we add the exponents. For example, if we remember in our first lesson, this would be the base and this 5 would be the exponent. So if we have x to the 5th power times x to the 3rd power, that's the same thing as saying x to the 5 plus 3 power, which is the same thing as x to the 8th power. Okay, here's another example of that. If we were to have 9 to the 2nd power times 9 to the 4th power, then we would bring down our equal sign and write 9 as our base and 2 plus 4 in our exponent section. And we know that 2 plus 4 is 6. So this is the same thing as 9 to the 6th power. Now remember, when we first talked about what exponents were, we learned that exponents were numbers that had the power to tell the base how many times to multiply itself. So 9 to the 6th power is the same thing as saying 9 times 9 times 9 times 9 times 9 times 9. And whatever all of that is would be our answer. Now I want you to take a moment, pause, and do some example problems. When you finish these 2 example problems, come and get them checked by me before moving on to the next part of the notes. All right, now that you've gotten your problems checked by Ms. Fersner, we're ready to move on to our next set of notes on the quotient of powers. So, when we're dividing like bases, we will actually subtract the exponents. Okay, remember quotients deal with division. So let's look at an example of this. If I have a problem where I have x to the 9th power divided by x to the 4th power, this is the same thing as writing my base of x, and then in the exponents, 9 minus 4. So the exponent in my numerator, I will subtract from the exponent in my denominator because both of the bases are the same, which would give me x to the 5th power as my final answer. Here's another problem to show that. If I have 2 to the 3rd power divided by 2 to the 1st power, this is the same thing as 2 as my base and then my exponents, I would subtract 3 minus 1, which would give me 2 to the second power. Remember that we're not done here. 2 to the second power is the same thing as saying multiply 2 by 2. And 2 times 2 is 4, which would be our final answer. Now that we're finished with this example, come to the side and go ahead and get started on these 2 practice problems. Once you're finished with these practice problems, please get them checked by me, and then you are going to be free to move on to your 2 practice IXL activities. See ya in the next one.